I saw you were voted one of the most influential real estate agents this year. So
Yeah.
that's really exciting that you made the top 50 for that. Clearly, you're influencing not only your clients at home in San Diego, but a lot of people outside of that circle. And that is super exciting. And I'd love to know a little bit about how and why you decided to go that route of growing a following around real estate.
For me personally, social media, I ended up hopping on that pretty early because when I entered real estate, it was probably 2015-ish, and not a lot of people were taking advantage of free marketing platforms. So that would be Instagram, Facebook, now TikTok, obviously that's blown up, and YouTube as well. So it's interesting to see nowadays how people have pivoted, but every single day I literally get young girls saying like, oh my gosh, I see your social media, I want to do what you're doing, and how did you get into real estate? And I typically end up answering the same questions over and over again for them, but it's cool to kind of be a leader, I guess, in that sense. But I come at it from an educational standpoint because before the crash of '08 and everything that happened with the financial and lending industries, there was a lot of misunderstandings and not a lot of trust, to be completely frank. I never ever want to be perceived as like a used car salesman type of person. Like that's just not what ethically I stand for. And I want people to understand that the biggest investment of their life, yes, you're going to have to get some education going towards that. And also, while you're in the process of owning a home. So for me, it's really important to kind of try to lead with education. And yes, marketing, pictures, all the glamour of real estate, that's kind of trivial in comparison to feeling confident in that really big purchase that you're going to make. So that being said, I mean, I do make it fun. I tried to make it entertaining, and it's cool to be recognized. And yeah, so I'm just really kind of enjoying where I'm at right now.
And also, you mentioned affordable housing, which is one of the reasons why I wanted to bring you on the call, because we had talked about how you actually grew up in Section 8 housing and have really taken that and propelled yourself to where you are today. I think it's just such an amazing story that, being in Section 8 and having that housing stability provided you with the ability to then pursue this. And I want to hear from you a little bit about your background there and your experience with Section 8 housing.
Yeah, absolutely. My mom told me that, she had applied for Section 8 during, I think, her pregnancy. And then when I was born, we were pretty much fast tracked into housing, which was very key for her. I don't want to get into too many details about my family orientation and everything that kind of happened there, but it is a very life-saving, federally sponsored program. And for me, it was, growing up, it wasn't something I bragged about to anyone. I did not want to tell people, and there's unfortunately a very heavy stigma that's associated with it. So, there's a lot of assumptions. I will say that I think I was talking to you on the phone last week about this, but I ran into this guy at a real estate event who had mentioned that he was a, property manager and his family had been in property management since the 60s. And, one of my girlfriends had asked if he, rented to Section 8, and he just immediately said, absolutely not. Those people are drug dealers. Those people are alcoholics. Those people are, they trash the place, et cetera, et cetera. And I had to walk away from that because it's just very frustrating to hear that type of dialogue happening from someone who's still actively in property management and knowing that that kind of discrimination still occurs today. Because had I not been given these opportunities through Section 8 housing, I probably would not be where I am today. And so it's, I know more people like myself who have been on Section 8 housing and have actually succeeded than I do know of any of these almost kind of like fairy tales that people have created, this narrative of like, oh, these people are just, whatever, making assumptions about whatever recreational drugs that they're doing. For me personally, it was me and my mom. And, I had a cat at one point too. And it was just us and me going to school. And, I also benefited from having EBT and SNAP, and those were meals that were paid for, having groceries, et cetera. So my mom did the very best that she could to basically instill a really strong just mental state of like, you know what, you have to outwork everyone and you will get to that next phase of your life. And so and I look back on it, I also had financial aid, and some people kind of look down on financial aid as well. But here I am today, a tax paying citizen making well over, a certain amount of money. I'm very comfortable right now. So it's one of those things where it's like, unfortunately, instead of listening to that negativity, how about focus on the success stories that actually come from it? And, at the end of the day, I'm very grateful for those programs to have been available to me and my mom. And, I'm very much happy to pay my taxes as an adult and give back to those programs in this, and now that I'm in this place in my life.
There's definitely a lot of mixed feelings about Section 8 housing, whether the programs are too restrictive or difficult for landlords, or the type of tenants that they might get from it. But at the end of the day, you are getting subsidized housing, meaning it's rent. And whether someone's on Section 8 or not, they could still be a nightmare tenant or a great tenant. I don't think that is a factor that determines what the tenant will be like. And I know that a lot of states, well, not a lot of them, but some have implemented this, anti-discrimination on source of income, and really treating Section 8 housing as a type of income rather than saying, oh, this person just doesn't make enough money for this rental, so they can't have it. Those kind of things have really opened the door up, I think, for a lot of people and a lot of families who then have someone like you who becomes the result of that really stable housing. So it's so great to see that actually play out in the way that it's meant to. I know that just a couple of days ago, HUD announced an expansion of a record number of housing vouchers. So part of the issue has been not just getting the vouchers, but having landlords who accept them. So I'd love to hear from you a little more on what you would say to landlords who may be hesitant to accept a Section 8 or might look at it a little differently than regular income.
Yeah, I mean, I think every landlord should probably do their own due diligence when it comes to checking out background of the individual to a certain extent. People who are on Section 8 are not necessarily commanding the highest paying jobs. A lot of the times, though, they are some of the hardest working people because they know that they have to also pay their portion. It's not just a free ride. So, there are housing vouchers up to a certain extent, but for the most part, or at least from my own personal experience, it was not something where it was a full coverage, all the stuff was paid. So that being said, especially in California with bills being as expensive as they are, people on Section 8 are typically going to have multiple, side jobs, etc. So, taking a chance on, a woman who may have two kids who just needs this for the time being. Perhaps, who knows what happened to the father, etc. But it's like giving those children a chance to have safe housing is just one of those really, really major things. And even if it isn't someone that has children, even if it is someone who is just literally trying to get back on their feet in some way or another, you have to understand that for me, in my industry in real estate, we had the last 2 years were some of the biggest that we've ever seen in quite some time, right? So it was somewhat unprecedented, but not every industry thrived during the pandemic. And a lot of people, some people are just a paycheck away from being on the street. And, and that's kind of just a fact and reality for a lot of Americans. And so I think that's something that needs to be considered. And especially I see this all the time, especially when I was in lending, with pre-approvals and stuff like that. It's like, you may think that you have, a nest egg, or you may assume that certain family will have you or have your back. And then if something does happen, you'll see how people change. A death in the family can change how people view money. There's so many different things that can happen. And I think that honestly, and deep down in my heart, I know that there's a lot of people like myself out there who just need, the correct housing, the correct, amount of food and nutrition to be able to contribute back to society. So I'm very much a believer that Section 8 can save lives.